So as I mentioned in the podcast about Gregorian chant and organum, organum is simply when you have notes of the Gregorian chant and you copy them exactly, usually at the fifth or the octave, and sing them at the same time. So if this was my original chant here, then I would copy it up, in this case 5 steps, and they would run, and this is called parallel organum. Now, that's probably the original way that it started, although there were other kinds like oblique organum, where one would just sing the chant on the same note the entire time. And then there's what we call contrary organum, where perhaps they would start at the octave, and if this one went up, that one would go down, and vice versa, so they make a mirror of each other, and so on. That's sort of a recap. What I want to show you today is the next development, which is called Florid Organum, or Notre Dame Organum, because that's where it originated. So let's say we have our original chant. Just make one up right now. And instead of just doing parallel organum or oblique organum or contrary organum or some mixture of that, what we do instead is we say, hey, let's hold this note out for a long time. Right there. And instead of holding this one out, which would be the organum line, the one at the fifth above that they're copying, instead we're going to ornament it like that before we move on. So this one would be holding out the first note of the chant, and this would be the first note of the organum right there, or the copied chant at the fifth of the octave. But instead of just one note per one note, this one then holds on and does lots of different things. It's called ornamented organum or florid organum, and it originated in Notre Dame, which is another name for it, Notre Dame organum. We have a special name for when you hold out the bottom note almost like a drone. It's called tenoring the note. Tenoring means to hold out. And so we have from organum a new style come up, which is called florid organum, where the one line is held out a lot longer, or tenored, and then it would move to the next note, and then we would have another pair there, but then this one would get to do more things until they were done, and then this would move on to the next note, and so on. The bottom line is tenored, and the top line is ornamented. And this is called Florid Organum, or Notre Dame Organum. And this technique developed because of people like Leonin, who were working in the Cathedral of Notre Dame in France. It could have been done for lots of reasons. It could have been a stylistic change. It could be because you had some very talented singing monks or priests that were singing the top line, and they were starting to do 2 notes per one anyways. But this is the first form of what we would call polyphony, where you have 2 separate lines, although one could argue that it's also homophonic because the tenored out longer bottom line becomes almost accompanimental. It's also important to note that this part right here is really easy, so maybe that was given to the people that didn't sing as well or couldn't do this kind of ornamentation, because it wasn't written down, it was actually improvised. Or because it's a simpler line, sometimes this is no longer sung but given to an instrument to hold out.